Hey there guys, this is Purple Ninja Link, and welcome to a relatively laid-back stream. So, I streamed earlier today, for one thing, so it's unusual for me to be streaming again so soon. But there's a bit of an explanation for it. In my game design class this week, it was recommended that we play through Portal, particularly to take note of how the game guides and teaches the player. Now, Portal is a game that I have played through time and time again in the last several years of my life, but most of that playing of Portal has been like speedruns. The last time that I booted this game up before today was to speedrun it for Extra Life last year. So it's been a while since I've really stopped and smelled the roses, so to speak. So we're just gonna kind of play through the game at a relatively relaxed pace. I'm gonna be taking notes, so I'll frequently take breaks from actually playing, but I'll at least say I'll talk about what I'm writing down while I'm writing it down. So it's not just completely, oh hey, this is cool, let me go silent for a minute and scratch things down in my notebook. So yeah, we're gonna play through Portal. I don't know how long it's gonna take. Probably under 2 hours, I would imagine. But it should be a good time. So, with the explanation out of the way, let's get started. We're starting from the beginning. Very good place to start. Let me adjust my own audio. Alright. Right off the bat, we're just kind of presented with time to acclimate ourselves. And obviously that's the purpose of it. Getting used to this world we're suddenly in. And of course we have GLaDOS to talk with us, kind of give us narrative context to what we're doing, but also that something's wrong. The portal will open in 3, 2, 1. So yeah, right off the bat, we're given time to just look around and engage ourselves in this environment. I wouldn't quite call it sanitary or sterile, because obviously there are, scuffs and stains and things like that. It's not the epitome of clean, it's not like a hospital, but it's still very artificial, very unfriendly feeling. This isn't a humane place. And with the voiceover kind of glitching out there, we're given a sense that things are a little off. Things are a little off, but we're gonna science and it'll be fine. Certainly. Fine. I'm gonna take a moment to write this stuff down. I'm admittedly realizing now that it's a little bit difficult to talk and write. So I'm going to try to maintain a conversation while I'm writing things down. But it may fade in and out a little bit. This is a laid-back run of Portal. If you're expecting speed, I've got that in other videos. I assure you I'm going to walk through this orange portal in just a minute, but you know, taking things slow. And by slow, I mean I've been streaming for 5 minutes and haven't walked through the first bloody portal. Perhaps this would be slightly more effective if the mic was sensitive enough that you could pick up the fact that I'm writing things down. This also does a good job presenting the central mechanic in a really easy to understand way. We've got this orange portal in front of us, and if we're staring into this orange portal, we can see ourselves staring into this orange portal. You look over here, we can see ourselves staring into this blue portal. Now it clearly communicates what's happening here. That we're seeing this from multiple angles that physically aren't possible, but that's the rules of this world. At least now you've got the radio to listen to. Alright, moving on. We've got these cameras that follow us, which are great. And I'll kind of go with the theme of observation. We have a box and a little pop-up to tell us how to pick up a box, which is good. And if you have a box, what are you gonna do but put it on a button? Boop.
Excellent. Please proceed into the chamber lock after completing each test. First, however, note the incandescent particle field across the exit. This aperture science material emancipation grill will vaporize any unauthorized equipment that passes through it. For instance, the aperture science weighted storage cube.
So yeah, once again we have GLaDOS using narrative context to explain what these things are. And this is actually one of the best cases of a narrative-based tutorial that I think I'm aware of, where it makes perfect sense that she would be explaining this to you. There are a lot of cases where it's like, oh, you don't remember how to fight, do you? Even though this is the 7th game in this series, and it's a continuous story arc. Let me teach you how to fight, because you're a seasoned warrior who forgot how to fight. You know, things like that, they work as tutorials, but they're very obvious tutorials. It doesn't really fit the narrative that it's trying to present in those cases, at least in my eyes. And I know that people complain about long-winded tutorials. But they love Portal, and Portal is a tutorial. That's why I'm playing it right now. Alright. There's only so much that I can write about GLaDOS explaining things in a narrative context, but I should note the effectiveness of it. Alright. Now we're in test chamber 1. Something of note right away is that
Please place a weighted storage cube on the
we don't
1500
get
megawatt aperture science heavy-duty
control
super
of
button.
this mechanic for a while. You know, we go through a couple of things before we get the opportunity to use it ourselves. But just by watching this, it demonstrates, even if I just stare at the orange portal, it demonstrates that these portals can move. They aren't always going to be in the same place the entire time. You know, at this point, we don't even know if we're going to get control over them, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that we know that, or that we don't, because we're still getting the basic rules laid out. And that's important. You know, someone who's not playing through this specifically for noticing all the minute details isn't gonna stand here and stare at the orange portal for 10 minutes. I really hope I'm not still here staring at this orange portal in 10 minutes. But this illustrates one more fact about these portals, that they move. That's all this test shows us, and that's okay. It works. I'm just gonna write this stuff down here a little bit. You can keep staring at this lovely montage of various angles of this test chamber. It would make a heck of a screensaver. A little bit jarring, I suppose, but kind of cool. Alright, one more note to make here, and then I can start moving things. See, only 2 minutes of staring into this orange portal. Maybe 3. I can pick this up, walk back through.
Perfect.
And it goes in a convenient order, too. Now, the order that this goes is box, button, door. which is exactly the order the player's gonna go in. They need the box to put on the button to open the door. It all but directly gives you the answer to this puzzle. I mean, I'm pretty sure GLaDOS openly tells you how to do this puzzle, but that's kind of beside the point. It's part of the point, because the voiceover is still a part of how the game's designed, but you know, she didn't keep talking and telling us the solution for that entire 2 minutes I was staring at the orange portal. So, it's good to have something else in case, for instance, your audio's not high enough and you don't have subtitles turned on. Or you flat out can't hear and you don't have subtitles turned on. Though if you can't hear, you probably have subtitles turned on. That's probably a thing you think about readily, or at least more readily. I don't know. I've never been deaf. I should make no assumptions. Alright. Another note down and another test chamber completed. I say another as if in this last 15 minutes we've done more than one test chamber, because that first part didn't count. So yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. I hope they know what they've gotten themselves into, because we are just going to relax, and it's gonna be great. Okay.
You're doing very well. Please be advised that a noticeable taste of blood is not part of any test protocol, but is an unintended side effect of the Aperture Science Material Emancipation Grip, which may, in semi-rare cases, emancipate dental fillings, crowns, tooth enamel, and teeth.
So now we can see here that there's something actually creating these. You know, earlier, we didn't get a chance to see anything creating them. There was just portal here, portal there, portal there. But now we see the actual, or an actual source. Oh, this little thing, right here. And in a minute, we get to get the thing. Possible spoilers, but at this point, for one thing, you probably shouldn't be watching me playing Portal like this if it's your first time playing Portal. Because it's not my first time playing Portal, and I'm going to reference things that haven't happened yet. But also this is really slow and not in a I don't know the solution so I have to stare at it for a little bit way. So if you haven't played Portal, go play Portal. It's a fantastic game. This will be up on YouTube later. You can watch it then. But you know, assuming we haven't played Portal, we see a thing. We want to get the thing. We can get the thing if I just walk off this ledge, but I'm not gonna walk off this ledge until I finished writing this note. Also, you may notice these subtle arrow indicators drawing immediate attention to what the heck is that thing in the middle. Often, game designers use subtle tips like these to lead the player in the right direction. A part of me is being sarcastic, but there are plenty of arrows made out of coins in the Mario games. And note, the entire focal point of this test chamber is this pedestal. You know, over here you get a window. You get a window through which you can see this thing. You know, everything is leading you right there, including the not-so-subtle arrows. Favorite of game designers everywhere. Questionably received by players everywhere, particularly those who don't like being told what to do. I'm gonna get back onto that ledge, so I don't get left behind once I'm finished writing this note. As if you're being kept in suspense with me staring off this ledge at the portal gun. Don't worry, we'll get there. Slow and steady. Alright.
Very good.
Now we can do
You are now in
things.
possession of the Aperture Science handheld portal device. With it, you can create your own portals. These intradimensional gates have proven to be completely safe. The device, however, has not. Do not touch the operational end of the device. Do not look directly at the operational end of the device. Do not submerge the device in liquid, even partially. Most importantly, under no circumstances should you... To ensure the safe performance of all authorized activities, do not destroy vital testing apparatus.
So you can see already that having this thing completely changes our perception of the world. You know, some similar mechanics in other games that do this are like the ability to merge with walls and link between worlds, or I mean, in some cases, just getting the first weapon in many games at all. Cave Story is the one that's fresh on my mind because it always is, but what's unique about this is that it gives us, it's not just we can kill enemies now. We can go so many other places. I mean, not necessarily in this specific room. I mean, I could go over here if I wanted to. Look, I'm over here now. Look at me. But this is the part of the game where the player really has to start thinking about the world differently. Now, anything we see, present company excluded, you can go there. That's a common quote with the interconnected open world games, which this isn't, but it's still apt here. Because suddenly, I can go over there. I can come over here. I can look up there if I want to. I can get rid of this camera. What the heck? And even from over here, we can see that. We can see where we started, which, again, there's a giant window into the arrow pit thing. The world is suddenly a sizable number of oysters. I'm no expert on marine life, but I'm fairly certain that's an adequate analogy. Let me go walk into the elevator before I stop doing things and take notes. The only restriction we have is that the only way we can get to any of those things is through that one wall. But it's still a much more open sense of freedom than anything we've had in the last less than 20 minutes, since nobody in their... nobody that's not sitting here taking notes on it is going to be taking this long playing the first couple of areas of Portal. But, I mean, some people might, and I won't judge for that. It takes a bit to get oriented to it. But the point is, we were already just thrown into this new world. And now the world is completely different. And it's been like 10 minutes. The space has been redefined. And that's really difficult to do in a lot of games. And at the same time, with all that freedom, they're not completely free because the orange portal is still hanging around in the same place. Alright, moving onward. Destroying cameras because I can.
Please proceed to the chamber lock. Mind the gap. Certain objects may be vital to your success. Do not destroy testing apparatus.
So, another example of things that set Portal apart. In a platformer, say you were doing a first-person platformer, which admittedly is not a great idea. First-person platforming is really difficult in cases that aren't Portal. You know, it has to have a puzzle element or something like that, because this is obnoxious for trying to precisely time jumps. But, you know, in a platformer, the point would be, how do I jump to this ledge? In this game, you can't jump to that ledge. You have to do this.
Vital testing
And then,
apparatus destroyed.
you know, here, we have it a little different, because we have stairs back up to here, so we can walk over here and shoot a portal up there if we want to. But, you know, Small Pit is a standard puzzle that a lot of players are used to, but now we have to go about it in a completely different way because this world functions differently. And yet it all makes perfect sense.
Remember, the Aperture Science Bring Your Daughter to Work Day is the perfect time to have her tested.
We also at this point get the option to see that walking through this thing gets rid of our portals and we can't shoot through it. Which is significant information. Another thing about that last test chamber, before we get started on this one, is that while some of the earlier chambers would show it, like particularly the first test chamber with the box button door puzzle portal rotation, that chamber reinforces the fact that you can go into either portal. Now, it works both ways. It's basically a gate. And you can use that to your advantage to get other places. Reach a vantage point, shoot another portal, use it to get to a different vantage point. It's introducing some things that it will expect the player to be able to do later. Because that's really one of the first times that Portal ever expects you to use portals to move across space rather than just going back and forth. The first chambers are a lot of back and forth, since one at most of the portals moves. But even though only the blue portal moves in that last chamber, we're still moving across space. Alright. Now we have chamber 4.
Welcome to test chamber 4. You're doing quite well.
Also, in case you were wondering, the cameras don't weigh down the buttons. Now, in case anyone wanted to completely skip the puzzle by just getting the thing. Also, you can't skip the puzzle by using portals because there's glass in the way. You can see the answer, but you can't get there like that. I mean, you can also see this box over here, and probably the box that just dropped, because that's how vision works. Or so I've been told. I'm not great at vision. But we have a couple of options here. I will present those options to you after a brief note-taking break. Insert the Jeopardy theme here, if you wish. Alright. So, there's a couple of options we've got. Darn. Oh, there we go. Cool. So as you just saw there, and as one might infer, putting a portal under something drops the thing. Unfortunately, the cube is a jerk. And it's at the corner where we can't reach. So option 2 is just go down there. And now we have the thing.
As part of our required test
We can't get stuck there.
We will not monitor the next test chamber. You will be entirely on your own. Good luck.
Also, even if you did somehow manage to peek around there while the door was open, you can't portal into this chamber. Which is a little funny because these things exist. You know, they'll destroy any non-player objects, basically. But, like, other than the cameras, which don't have any puzzle significance. You can't usually get things there. You know, at no point... The cube was the first example given of that, but at no point so far have we been able to get a cube to one of those emancipation grills, or whatever they're actually called. Alright. On to test chamber number 5. Here we see, for one thing, blatant lies, because the cameras are still going.
Vital testing apparatus destroyed.
And I mean, she still responds when we get rid of them. But now we have the ultimate test. 2 buttons. And here we have a box in a pit. Now it's a box not in a pit. It's a box in a reverse pit. So, on walking in here, you look around, you can see that box. You also see a pit. And you see 2 buttons. You need both of them. Very clearly indicated, you need both of them to open that door. And the orange portal is up there, so you can't just willy-nilly walk into it. I mean, the pit's probably gonna draw players' attention. Partially, there's this big light over here, and the corner over here is all shadowy and dark. So, you know, there are jokes about RPGs using spotlights to indicate quest NPCs and the like, but the lighting draws attention. It really does. Now, the brightest thing within your view when you walk in is this pit. Which, I mean, is a little ironic, I guess. You wouldn't usually think of a pit as the bright thing, but boy howdy, there's a cube in there. I mean, there's not any more, because I already moved it, but the point remains. The light draws you to the pit. And at this point, it's reasonable to assume that the player understands that you can put a box on a button to make the button do the thing. You know, the orange and yellow, well, the orange and blue lights indicate that as well. Now, there's clear graphical indications that this thing is working. And that's good. That's immediate feedback. The player knows they did a good. Which is nice to know. Now, it's nice when a game tells you that you're doing something right. And this... I'll admit I wasn't really looking specifically for those earlier. But this is one of the most blatant early examples of these little button indicators. And it's the first time you need to do multiple things to be able to open a door. And granted, I could come down here and shoot a portal, but I can't get back up. I still need both boxes. Taking a quick note-writing break. because I've said several things and haven't written them down. And it's important to write things down if you're trying to take notes, because the only difference between science and screwing around is writing it down. And ladies and gentlemen, we are doing science. Also, thank you, Adam Savage. Alright. That duly noted. We can come over here onto another page and progress.
As part of a required test protocol, our previous statement suggesting that we would not monitor this chamber was an outright fabrication. Good job. As part of a required test protocol, we will stop enhancing the truth in 3, 2...
Also, the movement and the specific placement of this orange portal means that you cannot get back down there after you've gone up. Which is significant. It's a point of no return. I mean, most of the game is a point of no return because you're just kind of going through these test chambers. But you can't, like, screw around and shenaniganize to get a box in here or anything. Also, these radios. The radios are kind of interesting. They're definitely not meant for a first playthrough. And a lot of people's first playthroughs, they weren't even here. They weren't added until several years after the game came out. As a part of a thing to promote Portal 2. Which is interesting, but not totally related to why we're here right now. So that's about as much as I'm gonna say about it right now. Let's just say that this is a way for the game to really reward the people who like to explore and try everything in a game. And try everything they did. This is Chamber 5, right? Yes, good. Hey, you can hear my notebook pages. That's nice. See, I do have a notebook here. I promise. I'm not just sitting here staring at a radio for the fun of it. Though staring at radios is pretty fun. Also, there's something to be said for staring at something that's continually out of reach. So close and yet so far, we can never cross paths with this radio again. Take a moment to appreciate it while it's still here. Moment over. Let's go. Well, starting things off, we cannot portal the majority of this room. Also, we have some new symbols here.
Safety is one of many Enrichment Center goals. The Aperture Science High Energy Pellet seen to the left of the chamber can and has caused permanent disabilities such as vaporization. Please be careful.
Ah yes, Vaporization, the most permanent of disabilities. So yeah, right here we're presented with two new things. Also, we can't just cheese our way to the exit. New thing number one is this thing, which is shooting these little energy pellet things at us. Which also makes this one of the first opportunities we have to die. Yeah! We did it.
While safety is one of many Enrichment Center goals, the Aperture Science high-energy pellet seen to the left of the chamber can and has caused permanent disabilities such as vaporization. Please be careful.
Technically, it's probably possible to, like, get yourself whacked in the head with a falling cube earlier than this, but it's one of the first really easy times to die when you aren't trying to. Though, note, you're not getting any portals on the sides here, so you can't just send this thing all willy-nilly about the room. I mean, you kinda can, but there's not much point in that. It just kind of goes all willy-nilly about the room and that kills you. But you know, these symbols on the ground, we've kind of paid attention to them before. I mean, they did bring us the majestic, subtle arrows of subtlety. But based on what GLaDOS was talking about, and based on what this thing looks like, it's reasonable to assume that this donut here is probably not a delicious breakfast pastry, and is instead a deadly ball of vaporization energy. Which then leads you to assume that this is not someone throwing a donut into a very strange-looking toaster. It's telling you, put the thing in the thing. And also there's a helpful guiding light. Remember that thing about lights? There's a light here that shows you exactly where you need to put it.
Unbelievable. You,
Subject name here.
must be the pride of.
Subject hometown.
So yeah, more lights as guidance, little icons, a saddening lack of delicious pastries, but guidance. Guidance is good. And GLaDOS' little explanation that starts as soon as you walk in immediately explains, this is what this thing is, also it can kill you. So maybe be careful. Or don't, because there are no safety regulations here. You know, these innocuous little things we walk through every time could emancipate teeth. So now, all of this is adding to the gameplay while also demonstrating very clearly that something is not okay here. But now, we have a couple new puzzle pieces that we can work with. We have the things that shoot the bouncy energy ball things, and we have the things that get the bouncy energy ball things. Both of which are important. And we also know that they can activate things, which is another important thing. Perhaps I should add a tally of the times that I say thing. But I'm not going to, because that would require even more work and time taken while I'm standing here staring at the donut dispenser. Writing some notes down. Alright, and moving on. Also, we have a thing that reacts to us standing on it. Which is, you know, kind of significant. It's good to know that things can do that. Okay, now moving on. And now we are in... Is this chamber 7 or is this more chamber 6? This is 7.
However, alarms and flashing hazard lights have been found to agitate the high energy pellet and have therefore been disabled for your safety.
So this is a bit of an interesting one, simply because we suddenly have the roles reversed. Suddenly this light isn't here to guide us because the orange portal is in the middle of it. But we still get a clear indication of where we need to shoot by this massive scorch mark on the wall from just who designed these things anyway, and why. Anyway, we still get a clear indication of where we're supposed to shoot. You know, it's not like a target that says, "Shoot me, please." But it's something. It's something that makes sense, and it's something that's logical to assume. You know, if we want to get the ball thing to the toaster, we have to shoot where the ball thing's going. Pretty simple solution. Very clearly indicated. For those of you just joining us who may not be aware that I am deliberately going through this game as slowly as possible, hi, I'm deliberately going through this game as slowly as possible. Taking note of the various game design elements that are used to guide the player. Not going to be of interest to everyone, but it might be to some. So here we are. Alright. Take another minute to note that down. And then we'll get back to it. Alright. So at this point, if you've been staring at this room for long enough, which you probably have since I've been sitting here staring at this room, you probably see the solution to the puzzle.
Good. Now use the
A little
aperture
bit of danger
science
there since the
stationary scaffold to reach the
giant
chamber.
angry donut has to go through the same portal that we have to drop through. But once again, it's gradually increasing the difficulty and the risk presented by this puzzle. We go from, we can stand here and watch it move, to, you have to go through the same space that it's going through. And you don't have to do it at exactly the same time, since this thing moves back and forth, but it's still a possibility, and it adds at least a slight bit more risk than just staring at the pretty sparkly thing going by. Make a note of that, and we'll keep moving on. Alright, let's keep going. Also, that introduced moving platforms, that's probably important. Or at least horizontally moving platforms. We hadn't seen those before. So there's a bit of a pattern developing. We're getting an average of one new mechanic every test chamber. You know, we had, in the intro, we had just the portals themselves, and then box and button. In the first test chamber, we had the portals can move. In the second one, we got the first version of the portal gun. Third one, we can move using portals. Fourth one, portals, boxes, and buttons. You know, it's a gradual escalation of the number of different things that you're required to juggle throughout a single puzzle. In that last one, we not only had the happy little ball of death that we just got introduced to, we had horizontally moving platforms, and the death ball was slightly more dangerous. Very gradual escalation, very reasonable escalation, but an escalation nonetheless, and yet it never feels overwhelming, which is a significant thing to note. So hold off a moment while I take a note of that. Perhaps another thing to keep a counter of. How many times do I say some variation of, wait a minute while I write this down? The answer, probably a lot. We've been going for an hour and we're in test chamber 8. Alright. So like I said,
Please note that we have added
we're in
a
chamber 8.
consequence for failure. Any contact with the chamber floor will result in an unsatisfactory mark on your official testing record, followed by death. Good luck.
We could be killed, or worse, expelled. So yeah, we're approaching halfway through, and there are no drinking fountains in this test chamber. The monsters. So now we have a pit of something that looks very dangerous. And also, if you were paying attention to what GLaDOS just said, we know it's very dangerous. So once again, the stakes have been raised. I mean, we also have a guardrail that's going to keep us from walking our happy little selves off, unless we jump over it. That won't keep us from walking our happy little selves into it. But at that point, we kind of asked for it. Fortunately, death is kind of a slap on the wrist. At least in this case. Oh. I respawned from an autosave point that was right on the ledge I just jumped my happy little self off of. So there's not a huge consequence for failure, but there is one. The fact that I'm saying that about death is a little bit silly, but true nonetheless. We can die, but it doesn't do much to us yet. It's just a thing that maybe we should not do. You know, if we feel like it. And to add depth to the flying energy donut puzzles, now the orange portal is not on either of them. However will we solve this? Find out after I write down some notes. At this point, if you've been here a while, you're probably getting used to this, so you're hopefully okay with me continuing to write down notes. Not that if you're not, I'm not going to continue to write down notes, because that's the entire purpose of this. I mean, this stream is called Game Design Analysis Portal. So here we are. Alright, just one more thing to take a note of, and then we'll keep going. Also, you may be tempted to just walk over here to the orange portal, but let me tell you, that's a bad idea. Just in case you were wondering. However, we are told that we can crouch. So if we crouch over here to the orange portal. And look at that, we only got a buzz cut. However, we should move. Also, funny little trick. You may have noticed that the energy ball thing was kind of fading out as it went back in, but it suddenly got brighter as soon as it went through that portal.
Very impressive. Please note that any appearance of danger is merely a device to enhance your testing experience.
Quiet down a moment, GLaDOS. I'm in the middle of talking about things. So yeah, that's an example of the game being just a little bit nice to us. It recognizes that it's in the line of sight of this thing. So it's not going to make us do all of that again, it just re-energizes the palette for us. Give us a little helping hand there. Nothing too significant, it likely wouldn't even be noticed if you weren't looking for it. But it's there, and it's helpful. And I'm going to make a note of it. And with that noted, moving on. Onward to bigger and better horizons. Or, well, not really horizons, we're inside, but you know. The point remains.
The Enrichment Center regrets to inform you that this next test is impossible. Make no attempt to solve it.
So, funny note here. Before we really get started just looking around at this puzzle, for quite some time when I first played through this game, I got stuck here. I could not get through this test chamber for a while. Because, you know, it doesn't immediately look like it has... Oh, shut up, GLaDOS. It doesn't immediately look like it has a clear solution. You know, we could take the box over to the button, but oh no, we can't. We could portal over... No, we can't. But at the same time...
Frankly, this chamber was a mistake. If we were you, we would quit now.
Yes, thank you, GLaDOS, I get it. If we come up here, we have an immediate line of sight to the solution. In case anyone was curious, there's a window here, and the radio does nothing to make it less obvious.
No one will blame you for
GLaDOS, will you please shut up a minute?
quitting at this point is a perfectly reasonable response.
Let me just say that when I was like 12 and first played through this game, I didn't have the greatest of attention spans for it. But... yeah. Da-da-da-da.
And cake will be served immediately.
You interrupted my victory jingle. Oh well. I have to write some things about it anyway. Because it really is an interesting setup. It's the first time that one of these things has been anywhere other than the end of a test chamber. We've never seen them in any situation where we could just wantonly throw boxes into them until the cows go home. But here we are, and we've got a pretty wanton amount of boxes. I mean, I'm not just going to continue ramming boxes into it, because I'm here to analyze, not to completely screw around. But yeah, it's the first time that we really have the opportunity to throw any puzzle elements into this thing that destroys puzzle elements. And that button is just right there, taunting us the entire time. Like, oh man, if only you could get a box over here. To improve the visual, pretend there's not a box here. Just like freeze frame it while I'm jumping. If only there was a box over here. Alternatively, we could give it like a nice Romeo and Juliet narrative. The box and the button, separated by fate, unable to come together. Separated by this thing that vaporizes anything that dares attempt to pass it. It's an option. Contemplate it while I finish writing notes. Also worth noting that GLaDOS repeatedly commenting about how this test is pretty much impossible is really effective reverse psychology. Because I don't have to be a game designer to know that people who play games a lot really hate being told that they can't do something. So the more times that GLaDOS tells us that there is no way we could possibly do this, the more drive we have to prove her wrong. Granted, the more frustrated we get if we don't know how to prove her wrong, but that's beside the point. It's still some level of motivation, though obviously it doesn't extend for as long as I've been sitting here staring at this thing. Alright, and writing the vantage point thing. Alright, let's keep going. I could have done that a little faster by just going through the portal.
Fantastic. You remained resolute and resourceful in an atmosphere of extreme pessimism.
Additional thing you could have tried. Portal into the door. Or not. That solution is also one that you just can't do. But hey, points for trying. I mean, GLaDOS won't give you points for trying, but you can tend. Oh darn it, I meant to go back and check that test chamber sign. Ah, it's this one. Excited about this one.
Hello again. To reiterate, previous one. Momentum. Vital testing.
Get rid of that camera,
destroyed.
because that's just a thing that we do at this point. So yeah, the only thing that you really get from GLaDOS' dialogue there is momentum. Specifically the word. But you also see this. And that's kind of a ready indicator of the kind of thing they're expecting you to do. And by kind of, I mean, that is exactly what they expect you to do. Which is where the game starts to become physics puzzles.
Spectacular. You appear to understand how a portal affects forward momentum, or to be more precise, how it does not.
And that first one, I can't go back and show it, but the only option is shoot a blue portal somewhere you can get to and see where the orange portal takes you. And that pretty readily shows you that the momentum carries over. Which pretty much makes success the only option in that first room. Which is a good way to do things. it's kind of like one of the examples we talked about earlier in the week was if you don't want someone to go left in a 2D side-scrolling game, put a wall there. They can't go left now. Time to go right. It's a simple solution, and it doesn't often, or it doesn't always readily carry over into other things, but it's certainly one that works well if you do it effectively. Alright. So now the portal's... Well, the portal that we don't get to place is down there. And as soon as we turn around, this thing comes up, and it's like, hey, I wonder where I should shoot this portal. Could it be on this thing that just moved? Oh, hey, that worked.
A function of mass and velocity is conserved between portals. In layman's terms, speedy thing goes in, speedy thing comes out.
I mean, at that point, the explanation's not totally necessary, because you've had to demonstrate that you get it to be able to even get that far. But note also the little numerical indicators of the steps of the process. I mean, almost literally, the room is practically stair steps, but even beyond that, you have clearly defined steps of, okay, well, you're here, can you get here? Alright, now that you've gotten here, can you get up here? The answer to both questions is yes. But it breaks it down, so you don't have to worry about, well, how do I get from here to up here? Just focus on the small goal first. Alright. Before we get started on this one, I'm actually going to take a bathroom break, briefly. So I will be right back momentarily, and then we will keep on going. Alright. We are back, and we are ready to keep going. We have test chamber 11 here.
The enrichment Center promises to always provide a safe testing environment. In
Gee,
dangerous
look.
testing environments, the Enrichment Center promises to always
We have a
provide
giant
safe
window
protocols. For instance, the
overlooking a
4-year-old
thing,
try to avoid
and the thing is shooting portals. Where have we seen this before? So yeah, clear callback aside.
vital
Hi, camera.
testing apparatus destroyed.
We have the same setup we did the first time that we got the portal gun for blue portals. So that builds up an expectation. And now this one's shooting orange portals. So hey, I wonder what we're gonna get in this test chamber. But at the same time, there's a little bit more to it than the first time. You know, it's been a while since we've seen rotating portals, but I mean, what exactly would we do about that one? I can't point, but you get it. I'm also moving a little bit too slow to just jump right in there. But that's alright. We can just take a look at things. Portal uses windows really well. You know, through that window you can clearly see the energy pellet that we need right here bouncing around. And we can tell that we need to get in there. From that window up there that we can't get back to now. Huh. We could see the portal gun over here shooting orange portals. It's an excellent way of accounting for the question of how do we let them see something without letting them immediately skip over steps of the puzzle. So we'll head in here. We're not gonna get killed. It'll be great. And there we go. I mean, unfortunately, we now have to wait for another cycle, because that's a slow-moving platform. But I need to write some stuff down anyway. So here. Welcome to the sequel of staring into the orange portal for 2 minutes, staring into the blue portal for 2 minutes. We'll step out onto this platform. Make it a little more interesting than just staring into a portal the entire time. Hey look! Even the arrows came back. Also, fortunately, you can't get a portal opened through your chest or anything. That'd be unfortunate. Alright. I will point out that it's yet another escalation of the rotating portals mechanic, given that 2 of them are over death pits. And the toxic goo, by the way, is an excellent solution to death pit when it can't logically be bottomless. You know, just fill it with something that kills ya. It's just as effective, and, well, a good bit quicker. Additionally, I kind of alluded to this but didn't specifically mention it. The energy pellet and the receptacle for it were in completely different rooms in this one. But it's never overwhelming. See, did I write? Excellent. And now the moment you've all been waiting for. When will I actually pick up the gosh dang gun? You rude little punk.
As part of an optional test protocol, we are pleased to present an amusing fact. The device is now more valuable than the organs and combined incomes of everyone in
Subject hometown, here.
Alright. Alright. I skipped a step. Because I turned around instead of looking at this obvious button here. That's on me. I promise that time it wasn't me intentionally making this take longer. That time it was me accidentally making this take longer. Because gosh dang it, I've played through this game so many times I can't remember the solution to every puzzle in the game immediately. But yeah, we now have both sides of the portal gun. Remember that world opening up thing? Oh boy. Alright. We are now completely free to portal in very specific locations. Because the entire wall is covered in non-portable surfaces. Even when our freedom is unrestricted, it's still restricted. Whoops. Oh well. Worked that time. So yeah. More momentum. And suddenly it's made slightly different by the fact that we have control over both portals. You'll note that it doesn't give one of those little frame things on this one. We're free to just kind of put it where we want to. Which still works. And once again, the, words, I can't them. The freedom that we're given isn't completely free, but it's still freer. And now remember the thing I was actually trying to say. The game does help you a little bit. You notice that it kind of corrected my course there. That's an option you can turn off. Which is interesting. That's one that they do openly tell you about. portal funneling, as they call it. Just to make things a little bit more manageable. But it's worth noting, even though I kind of joked about it, that restricting the areas that you can place portals on in this first room where you have both pieces of the portal gun, restricting that freedom largely prevents the occurrence of paralysis of choice. You know, if all of this was a valid space to place a portal, for one thing, you wouldn't have the framing necessarily. I mean, there's still the orange glow around these, but you wouldn't have the same degree of framing that these white panels do in the middle of all of this dark. But it would take forever to figure out which combination of locations will actually get you the right solution. Or, at the very least, it could. Instead of, I have all of these options, which combination will work, it's, where's the piece that I can control? And that makes the puzzle a lot more manageable. So, pardon me a moment, as I write things down off of my little soapbox there. Here. Stare at this box on the button. Gaze at it. Admire it. Appreciate it. Bask in its incomprehensible beauty. Alright. Continuing onward. Also the return of these little number indicators. Which is nice. Again, breaking things down into steps. Because it's easier to eat bites of a sandwich than it is to eat an entire sandwich. Oh yeah, you remember that whole thing about not having portable surfaces everywhere? Well, I can show you the world. And you can place portals everywhere here. Except for these places that I'm shooting that you can't. Like the glass. But here's that freedom we were looking for.
Now that you are in control of both portals, this next test could take a very, very long time. If you become lightheaded from thirst,
Well, that's funny.
feel free to pass out. An intubation associate will be
There we go.
dispatched to revive you with peptic salve and adrenaline.
So that statement is kind of funny. Because yes, it is very easy to completely lose track of
Testing apparatus destroyed.
what you're doing. suddenly the game isn't just placing one portal for you. You know, again, we see this energy ball thing. We're kind of used to it at this point. We can do it. We can take care of this. And we have a box. Again, we're used to it. We can take care of it. If we time things right. It's on a horizontal moving platform, so it's a little more difficult, and we don't just get the end of the platform like we did earlier. But it's all very manageable, and those numerical indicators also double as nice little guidelines for where you need to shoot a thing if you want to, say, drop a box into a pit and have it land somewhere near the button. I mean, ideally that would have landed on the button, but, you know. Yeah, that's on that button. So once again, we have 2 things required. This is actually also one of the cases where there are multiple solutions to this test chamber. It's just also really... It's humorously simple once you know how to use the 2 portals effectively. But this is the first time we've really had an opportunity to. So, we need that box there to open that door, right? You know, we can't get through the door without keeping a box there. Now, that would have been the thought any time before now. But, well... that's just not how the world works anymore. We are perfectly capable of getting through that closed door, as long as we opened it once. Now I can set that up. Oops. And drop down here.
Vital testing apparatus destroyed.
Of course, that's the really funny thing. You also could just totally ignore that. Because it will flat out just let you teleport into that chamber.
Previously mentioned required test protocol. We can no longer lie to you. When the testing is over, you will be missed.
So it's the first chamber that really allows you a few different ways of doing things. And that is all afforded to you by the fact that you can suddenly use both portals. Just like when we first got the portal gun. The world has changed. And now we can do some really cool things. Like write notes on how the world has changed. Also, I am not ashamed to admit that I was also stuck on this one for a while when I was younger. Not as long as that other one, but a little bit. Yes, this is the part where the reality we've established is challenged again. It's sort of like elementary school science classes, where they're like, this is how the world works, and then the next year they're like, we lied to you in all of these ways, this is how the world actually works. And that's basically how science classes work. Well, surprise, Portal, a game about science. Question mark. Also works that way. All right. And now we can carry on. Oh. I was just thinking about this test chamber. Still no drinking fountains.
All subjects intending to handle high-energy gamma-leaking portal technology must be informed that they may be informed of applicable regulatory compliance issues. No further compliance information is required or will be provided, and you are an excellent test subject.
So, allow me right off to say, it's been a really long time since I've done this test chamber the way you're supposed to do it. So, this one might legitimately take me a moment on the solution just because I haven't done it in a while. But hey, that's how this is supposed to work, since I'm trying to find the regular solutions to these things and how the game guides you to them. So we have a box up here. It's got a nice little skylight, once again, using light to guide the player to the solution. And we have this. You may notice that we don't see or hear an energy pellet. So it's a reasonable assumption that we can't use this yet. Once again, with the changing expectations thing, this is the first time that they haven't been within sight of each other. We know that there's gonna be a pellet thing, because there is one of these, but heck if we know where it is. However, actually, let's try over here. We've just finished talking all this much about momentum. We've got this nice pit. This is a point where you do have choices. You know, how you're gonna get up here and how you're gonna get the cube. And there's some guidance to it, because there is some amount of this space that doesn't allow you to shoot a portal. You know, you can't just throw a portal behind the box and walk over here and get it. But obviously we need the box because there's a button there. So, beforehand, a lot of the puzzles were about, here we have these two pieces, how do you connect them? In this one, that's built up the assumption that if there is this piece, there is the other piece too. So where do we find the piece we need to complete this puzzle? And then how do we connect them? So it's a reasonable assumption that we need to find the thing that goes here, so we'll just leave a portal there for the moment. I'm taking a note, by the way, of basically what I just said, in case anyone was wondering why I suddenly stopped talking. Though if you've been watching this far, you probably aren't wondering that anymore. So you may notice, again, we can't portal in here. Which is good, because that discourages us from, accidentally overwriting that portal we've got over there. I mean, granted, we can portal right here, but we now have to keep track of which portal we've used, so we don't accidentally make things harder than they have to be. So basically, the entire purpose of this little room is, hey, by the way, you should probably keep track of that portal. We go through here. And hey, look. You remember how I said that 3D first-person platforming is really hard? Well, it's not exactly really hard,
A complimentary victory
but
lift has been activated in the main chamber.
first off, GLaDOS' narration there tells us that something changed in the main area, because we can't see what actually happened. Secondly, this platforming section has to be doable with or without portals. I could have just portaled here, portaled there, gotten across, but since I needed the blue portal to be above this thing, or if you didn't do that step, needed the orange needed a portal to be here so we could go back and put a portal on the other thing. We have to be able to get back somehow, or get here somehow, depending on which we chose to do. Take a note of that, and then we will move on. And I thought this would take less than 2 hours. I mean, I could speed things up a bit, but there's a lot to be gained here. I've written almost 3 pages of notes. Alright.
The Enrichment Center is committed to the well-being of all participants. Cake and brief counseling will be available at the conclusion of the test.
But
Thank you
no
for
water
helping
fountains.
us help you help us all.
What kind of anarchy are they running here? This was another one that I got very stuck on for a while. And we also have a nice little indication here. It's a lot more subtle than the white against the dark, non-portable tiles. But it's still an indication that this spot is different and might be important. Which, in our case, means place a portal there. I did forget one more note that I needed to make on the last chamber, so I will do that real quick, and then we'll proceed. Well, and I need to make a note of this nice little checkerboard. I am aware that anarchy isn't run by anyone. That was the joke. Alright. More fun with momentum. Also, to be clear, it wasn't that part that I was stuck on. And actually, now I'm questioning whether it was even this test chamber. No, it was this one. It was this one. So here we have an interesting little setup. We have the scorch thing. We have the thing that takes the donut. First of all, we can see that the energy donut is not at all affected by these little destroy things that we don't like grills. But now how do we get it over here? So we can see here, like I just said, that the pellet isn't affected. Which means that it could go through this one without any problem. That's probably a good first step. And then we have the setup, and there we go. I believe that is the first time that we've required more than 2 portals to be able to actually solve a puzzle at all. When it's on such a micro scale as get the energy donut to the thing that eats the energy donut. So things are definitely getting noticeably more complicated. Maybe that seems like an obvious thing, but it feels natural. Yes, you might get stuck on some parts, but it's always doable. And it's always doable with the pieces of the puzzle that you have here. So I'm going to write a little bit about this little section, and then we'll keep moving forward. Fortunately, this isn't a game like Resident Evil, where it would be even vaguely possible for me to get annihilated while I was standing here writing notes. Then again, I would not be playing Resident Evil and be so relaxed. Alright. Also, in case anyone's wondering, no, I'm not going to stream Resident Evil at any point. Here we are.
Vital testing apparatus destroyed.
So, now we can't just speedy thing goes in, speedy thing comes out through here. Because this floor can't be portaled. You know, it's not like we can play with the fun checkerboard again and go, wee! Oh. And it kind of guides us through it with these little icons. Hey, by the way, you can shoot a portal in midair. And we've got a nice little pit over here. That neatly gets us through. That jump took me quite a while to figure out when I was younger. I just couldn't get the shoot a portal in midair thing to work. Partly, I'm pretty sure my computer was slower, so it didn't run Portal all that well. But, you know, we try. Also, look, it's like they're friends. Except one of them needs to shoot the thing into the other thing. And that can't happen like this. We'll have more fun with momentum as soon as I finish writing this note. It's also worth noting that at this point, we're using like an average of 3 or 4 different elements in a single test chamber. Now, it's not like the early ones where we had, you know, a thing or two that we had to deal with. In this one, we're using the little bouncy things, the grills, the momentum. We've got moving platforms over here. Also, they're moving the wrong way, and these subtle arrows of subtlety are attempting to, you know, make that a little bit easier for us. Because what the heck do we do if the platforms are moving the wrong way? Fortunately, if we can see it, we can go there. But it immediately feels backwards to us. Simply because we, you know, in general, moving platforms go in the direction that we're intending to go. You know, some cases they don't, but this is one where we can't even actually see the end goal. from the start. And according to the arrows, we're going the wrong way. Which, spatially, makes sense, since the platforms are coming back towards us. We don't need to continue to stand here, he says as he continues to stand here. Alright. So in this one, we once again have the energy pellet thing. And we've got this, but we can see there are 2 doors here. What do we do about 2 doors? And also, opposite buttons on opposite sides of the room. You can see them from each other, but once again, we're using Windows to make sure that just because you can see it doesn't mean you can easily get there. I mean, portals help. But we can also see our friends the numbered dots are returning. And the clock is ticking. This isn't the first time we've had a timed door. That was in the place where we got the orange portals, and I forgot to mention it. But now we have 2 timed doors, and also we need portals to be able to use them, and we have to somehow get this thing over there. Complexity. Again, it's been a while since I've done this one right, but now we get the little spotlight thingy.
Did you know you can donate
And that lets us get the thing to the thing.
vital organs to the Aperture Science Self-Esteem Fund for Girls? It's true.
Also, I'm realizing, thinking back on what I said, that I definitely tried to make excuses for my 12-year-old self not being able to complete this test chamber. I will also readily admit that my 12-year-old self was not nearly as good at Portal as I am. Now. I probably should have walked into the elevator, but oh well. Alright. I think after this chamber, I am once again going to take a quick bathroom break. Or after this elevator, that is. Yeah. Yeah, I know what chamber this is. I'm gonna take a quick bathroom break and I'm gonna refill my water. So I'll be back in a minute, and then we'll continue slowly meandering through the halls of Aperture Science. Back in a minute. Alright. And we are back. And ready for test chamber 16. Wherein we have a door.
Due to mandatory scheduled maintenance, the appropriate chamber for this testing sequence is currently unavailable. It has been replaced with a live fire course designed for military androids. The Enrichment Center apologizes for the inconvenience and wishes you the best of luck.
Alright, so a couple of things to note here. This is a new symbol. And it's not a dance party. Unfortunately, that would be sweet, but that's not what that is. But right here, we immediately get framing. GLaDOS just told us, you just heard, this is a live fire course. Talking about ramping things up a little bit. So it can be assumed that these things we don't know what they do is probably shoot us. Also based on the fact that these things we don't know what they do are on this symbol we don't know what it does. And either they are the world's most efficient puppet masters, they're really good at exciting dance parties, or they're gonna shoot us. And we can clearly see that they've got laser sights. They're here, and we can see the corner of this one's leg poking around the edge of this wall. Things are about to get dangerous, but we get a really good look at that just from right here. And that's why I'm gonna write that down before walking in among the bullet-flinging weirdos. Alright. So a couple of things to note here. If we didn't already notice, or if we were still under the assumption that these things were just gonna have sweet dance parties for us, well, at this point, you might guess that that's not actually the case. But this gives us a really good chance to observe their behavior. We can see how these things work. We can see that they're going to shoot us. And yet they don't pose any threat to us right now, because we're on the other side of this bulletproof glass. And thank goodness we now know that it's bulletproof glass. So I'm gonna let that guy just happily waste his infinite supply of bullets while I write that down. At least it's not too quiet this time. But that's the thing. This one's the first one we can actually interact with. And it is not a threat. It is facing a wall. It is looking over there. So we see these guys can shoot us. We can see that they've got some decent peripheral vision. You know, even that one can see us. But this one can't. And this is the one we would actually have to be worried about if it could. But instead we can just, like, falcon kick it in the back of the head. Or in the side of the head. And then we can get stuck on a turret. We can also pick it up, by the way. That's important to note. Also, yeah, through this we can see that they do fire wildly, and they are not shooting blanks. You know, the GoldenEye red screen, the blood splatters on the wall. In general, I'm not a huge fan of, you know, copious blood and all of that in games. But this all makes it very clear that these things do pose a legitimate threat. You know, and yet this one is not going to kill you. Unless you, like, try to jump over it and walk down the hallway. This one, though, the first thing you see of it is the laser sight. So they start this chamber by introducing them to you in a completely safe environment.
Vital testing apparatus.
And then you've got this guy. You can take care of him pretty handily, because he's standing on a portable surface, but you might not immediately think to do that, so they give you some cover. They give you some cover, you can get close, you can go around behind him if you want. You have options. But we've gone from, you get an entire test chamber to figure out how this mechanic works, to, this one can't hurt you, but the next one will. They're pretty well expecting that you're gonna pick this up pretty quickly, and if you don't, you're gonna get shot until you do. Granted, to call any of these things safe is a little bit of a stretch, because they are still loaded with bullets and going to kill you if they get the chance. But the way that that one back there was positioned was very much a case of, look, this is what they do, you can see it through this window. The window will protect you. This is one of them right here. It's not going to shoot you unless it sees you. But you can figure out how to take care of it. And I will go back here and note, okay, the turret itself might not have been on non-portable surface, but you can't portal around it. You have to deal with it somehow. This one you can portal around, but it can also shoot you. Right, I'm actually gonna grab another pencil real quick. Fortunately, I have one in my nightstand right behind me, just in case this one runs out of lead, because it is down to its last little bit. Now we have another case of the first thing you see is the fact that it can shoot you. There's this nice little X up there. And yeah, I just got shot in the back. But X marks the spot.
Sentry mode activated.
Hello.
Vital testing apparatus destroyed.
X marks the spot where we can drop from the ceiling on this guy's head. I mean, obviously, he can't shoot us when we're on top of him. But it's still very clearly... The setup of this area is designed to give us options for dealing with these guys. You can portal on top of them. You can portal behind them. You can portal under them. You have ways of dealing with this. You just have to use them. I will go ahead and come in here real quick. I was debating it. We've got a nice little secret area here. I mean, quote-unquote secret. It was pretty obviously displayed by these things being out of whack. But from a narrative standpoint, this is, you know, further revealing that something is wrong. You know, we've got like an open computer being used as a grill. All of this stuff. Water jug, cans of beans. This is a very narrative-heavy area. But there's also a really interesting thing from a design perspective in here, other than just that the place is, you know, kind of hidden. So I'm gonna step out. If memory serves, this can happen here. It's possible that memory doesn't serve. There are very few places in Portal that it is possible to get stuck. And for one thing, option D, drop things on them. But for another, you know, were these panels to close, and were we to be back here, we'd be stuck. In the very rare instances where you can get yourself stuck in this game, GLaDOS will open things up for you. So you can't get yourself into a completely unwinnable position. I mean, for one thing, it was designed well to the point that there aren't many of those cases. But yes, hi. I'm just gonna step over here for a moment so you stop shooting at me so I can get a chance to talk. There aren't many of those cases, but even the ones where they are, they were aware of it, and they make it possible for you to get out. And that's a part of effective level design. You have to be aware of the cases where a player could potentially get stuck, and either remove them or do something about them in the case that it's an extreme edge case that they would ever get stuck there. You know, you'd have to be trying to get stuck anywhere in Portal. Because in just about any position you could get yourself, you can see some way that you can portal yourself out of it. But even those few edge cases, they've accounted for. So I'm going to make a note of that, and then I'll talk about these guys a little bit. So, throughout this whole little area, we've had pretty obvious indications of, here's an option, like this X over here, and the X that was over here. you know, either X's on the ceiling or just an open corridor where you're surrounded by portalable things. Here, the only thing that is made actually clear is that you cannot shoot a portal under them because they're on the portal-proof flooring. No, we can't just drop them into the abyss. But this is the point where they're like, okay, we just showed you how to do this. Do it again. And yes, that might involve getting shot once or twice. But we have the freedom to take care of these guys the way we want to. For instance, club them in the back of the head with a cube. Falcon kick them in the face. We have options. We were just showing that we have options. And now we get to use them. Also, there's this one, and all of the bullets over here because this was the line of sight of that turret. Also some tools. They're just kind of here. But this does give us more ammunition, so we've got a couple of options in case we need them. Also, if you remember this guy, he'll still kill you dead. And dying does have some degree of consequence now. Because he didn't autosave right before we died this time. Additional option. Boop. Also, funny little side note. You may have noticed in the subtitles that the turrets do actually have audio for when they shoot each other. But yeah, so we've been given these options. We've been shown different applications of these very options. Hi. Fortunately, they can't shoot you when you're holding them. That could have been very bad. That's a lot of blood on that wall. Also, that's kind of a jerk move, but it's not impossible to deal with. And once again, we're given another turret that's just kind of facing away from us, but it's not as immediately presented as a safe, quote-unquote, turret. Because the only places that we can see are where it can see. And we can't just walk up behind it and grab it. But it's still dealt with easily enough if you use the options that they just taught you how to use. It's funny because this test chamber opened up with saying this is the live fire course for live fire training course for military androids. It accomplishes its purpose. It is training you on how to deal with these turrets.
Well done, android. The Enrichment Center once again reminds you that Android Hell is a real place where you will be sent at the first sign of defiance.
Alright. Is this one everyone's favorite? This one is everyone's favorite.
The vital apparatus vent will deliver a weighted companion cube in 3, 2, 1.
Here we have an element of Portal that everyone remembers.
Will accompany you through the test chamber. Please take care of it.
So, obviously, the happy little pink hearts on this box clearly indicate that it is different from other boxes. And GLaDOS immediately starts kind of playing it up to an extent. Note, you cannot portal anywhere in here. This is the first place we can possibly place a portal. But this heart and GLaDOS kind of talking it up a little bit informs the player that this is what this test chamber is about. You're going to be carrying this single cube through the entire chamber, which is a subversion of how they've normally treated cubes. Normally, a cube is to be applied face first to the nearest puzzle, and then left behind. You are very strongly encouraged not to leave the companion cube behind. Please take care of it. Take a moment to appreciate the companion cube while I write some more notes. You may have also noticed the flying energy pellet behind me, or in front of me. There is a reason that I set that portal up there.
The symptoms most commonly produced by Enrichment Center testing are superstition, perceiving inanimate objects as alive, and hallucinations. The Enrichment
So we're
Center
encouraged
reminds you
here
that the weighted companion
that
cube will never threaten to stab you and, in fact, cannot speak.
we can use the cube as a shield because it'll block the energy pellets.
Vital testing apparatus destroyed. Vital testing apparatus destroyed.
Let's see. There is one point that I will readily understand or readily admit that I don't understand why this keeps happening. So you'll notice, I portaled over there. This one shut off. It's kind of convenient because we don't have to go down there again. But there's no logical reason that that should be the one that's still there. Also, here we have a button we can't get to. Might be important to remember for later. Now, we're just gonna come down here. Going to set... So here we have 2 buttons and 2 doors, and we have exactly 1 cube. Now, we could be on the button, and the cube could... Well, we could be on this button, and the cube could be on that button, or we could be on this button, and the cube could be on that button. Except we can't get up to that button without the cube. But the cube can get up to that button without us. So we have to come back over here. Unfortunately, usually that kills me at least once, but
cannot speak. In the event that the weighted companion cube does speak, the Enrichment Center urges you to disregard its advice.
so at that point, suddenly this is about having to very carefully be on the button and dodge the thing, because that's your only option for solving this puzzle. And that's clearly communicated by the fact that you cannot get up to this button if the box is on this one. And you can see in here, this kind of, once again, makes our progress visible in steps. And we have these 3 things, all of which lead in to these 3 platforms. So what's over here? In case you forgot how to use your companion cube as a shield, this one is admittedly one of the trickiest examples of the get the pellet to the thing puzzles they've used. At least if you're going by the normal puzzle solving of Portal. Because you can't portal in here. None of this is portalable. This entire test chamber relies on you using this cube in ways that you would not have thought to use a cube. And it continues to compound that throughout the chamber. Also, I can't make simple jumps because first-person platforming is hard. Also, there's another thing back here, but I don't really have much to say about it, so I'm not going to go to it because this has already taken 2.5 hours. And the side areas aren't necessarily relevant specifically to the design of the game.
You did it. The weighted companion cube certainly brought you good luck. However, it cannot accompany you for the rest of the test and, unfortunately, must be euthanized. Please escort your companion cube to the Aperture Science Emergency Intelligence Incinerator.
So here we have incinerators, or an incinerator. It's a thing, there's fire.
You euthanized your faithful companion cube more quickly than any test subject.
And we have to throw the companion cube in. Which is immediately a punch to the gut. Because the happy little thing, you were just told how happy it was, how important it was. And now you have to burn it. But now you know how to burn things. And you're gonna remember how to burn things. So yeah, that was test chamber 17, and they are still introducing new things.
The experiment is nearing its conclusion. The Enrichment Center is required to remind you that you will be baked, and then there will be cake.
And still no water fountains. Fortunately, I've got a water bottle. Also, the inclination towards violence is getting less and less subtle. But you'll notice, once again here, not only are non-portable surfaces used to limit the options of the puzzle, but they actually, in a traditional art move, guide you along it. You walk in, you see this, you kind of follow it up this way, there's the ceiling, hey, there's the answer. To an extent, it's every time they do this, it's still using light to direct the player, it's just using contrast rather than, a flashlight. So, we can come over here, take a moment to reorient ourselves. And once again, if you were paying attention to this one, you can kind of see where this is going. Except, the only surface you can reach that has portals, or that you can portal, is down there. So, once again, increasing the challenge and a bit of the reflex of it. But still broken down into nice, easy steps. Jumping over toxic goo, easy as 1, 2, 3. And still, every time... That's a common level design thing in this game. Every time you have a big open room, the majority of it cannot... you can't shoot portals on the majority of it. That way you don't spend all of your time meandering around shooting portals at every floor and wall that looks at you funny. Because that won't get you anywhere. Instead, they highlight, some surfaces, but primarily the ones that you actually need to be able to solve the puzzle itself. They never give you more options than you're able to handle at any point. I will say, though, we are fast approaching my least favorite room in this game. That's a personal point of bias, but it's worth mentioning either way. I'll get to that as soon as I've made a note of this. Alright. We're just gonna throw ourselves down here. We'll throw ourselves down here too. There we have a button, but we haven't seen a single cube. Also, those subtitles might have cued you into something. So this room. Hi there, friend. So, important things to note before we even walk in. We do not have access to portals on the ceiling. We only have moderate access to portals on the walls. And there are turrets everywhere. I'm trying to look through this glass, thank you. Alright. So, I'm gonna kind of try to take care of this a little bit quickly. That happens, that's fine. Okay. And by a little bit quickly, I mean not super quickly. But fortunately, the turrets continue to have these laser sights for where they're facing by default. So, you can kind of tell that this thing has been here for a while. Because these things are so beaten into the walls. You know, these scorch mark indents.
Vital testing apparatus destroyed.
But while we can't like drop from the ceiling or anything, we can use the dots that we're given to very much clear out the room. Because the points that we're given that we know things will happen in are these scorch marks and the lasers from the turrets, which both serve to guide us to what we can do. This part is a little bit tricky. So there's this thing. We can get over here and we can press the button. The button does not stay active for long. Before I finish going into the solution for this one, I'm going to make a note of the turret thing. Alright. So, once again, we have this thing that is spinning and shooting pellets. And this is about where it lines up with this thing. The easiest solution is what I just did. Get the thing moving towards the receptacle, and then change portals and hit the button. It's also worth noting that there's a floor down here. That'll come in handy in a minute. So this looks like it'll take us to the cube, but it doesn't. So there's this thing down here. And that activates that ramp, meaning we're no longer trapped in this room. But it's still on a time limit. But it's also a sloped surface. We've used sloped surfaces before. Unfortunately, we didn't use them fast enough. Because I was trying to explain things instead of just doing them. You get the idea. So I'm going to just do it. And by do it, I mean walk into the water, because I'm trying to rush. Which happens. Fortunately, that autosave brought us right back to, the point we were just at. And I don't have to kill the turrets again. So, we have this ramp. And we have this pit. And together, by their powers combined, we can drop the cube.
Destroyed. Please proceed to the Aperture Science Vital Apparatus vent for a replacement.
Thanks, GLaDOS. So yeah, there aren't a lot of cases where that can even happen. But there we go. Cubes can get destroyed. We don't technically have to bring the cube down here with us, but it's faster since we also need that ramp active to get out. And now we have a cube for the button. That room acts as a massive, kind of overwhelming puzzle box. But if you take it slowly, instead of trying to immediately rush it like I did the first time, it works out pretty well and you've got dots to connect.
Vital testing apparatus destroyed.
So here we have a pit. A pit with an easy escape route, fortunately. And we have this platform here. Glancing at the structure of it, it's pretty easy to get an idea of what's going on here. Multi-tiered platforms, we've got our friends the numbered dots. And we've got a giant pit. So we probably need some momentum. So, let's get just that. Now, it's not immediately obvious necessarily, but this is another one that requires us to think in terms of multiple portals to get to the solution.
Be advised that the next test requires exposure to uninsulated electrical parts that may be dangerous.
Each time we can see a little bit higher.
For more information, please attend an Enrichment Center Electrical Safety Seminar.
And each time we can see higher, we can fling ourselves even higher, and it just continues to build on itself until we get to the end. By this point, there's a lot less that needs explicit instruction, but it's still teaching us about things that we can do. That's the first time we've had to go in and out of the same portal and bounce back and forth like that. That was 18 out of 19 test chambers, and we're still learning new things. But I hope you're ready for the final exam.
Welcome to the final test. When you are done, you will drop the device in the Equipment Recovery Annex. Enrichment Center regulations require both hands to be empty before any case.
Alright. So this setup kind of mirrors what we had a few test chambers ago. But we can't use the same solution, because we cannot portal on either of them. In the interest of not fleeing that thing to the Four Winds, I will go ahead and portal there first. But given the options, that's readily the best one available. At least the moving platforms are working with us. But we can also see that that we've got a bouncing energy pellet there that just doesn't show any signs of stopping.
Vital testing apparatus destroyed.
Bye-bye. It's also a little weird looking. But all of that kind of prepares us for what we needed to do there. Unfortunately, I can't stand still and explain it because we're about to get dropped in a pit of fire. But you notice
Thank you for participating in this Aperture Science computer-aided enrichment activity. Goodbye.
Alright, I'm gonna explain it once I get out of this. For one thing, note that the platform slowed down a lot there.
What are you doing?
Okay,
Stop it.
I'm gonna take some notes while she flips out.
We are pleased that you made it through the final challenge where we pretended we were going to murder you. We are very, very happy for your success. We are throwing a party in honor of your tremendous success. Place the device on the ground, then lie on your stomach with your arms at your sides. A party associate will arrive shortly to collect you for your party. Make no further attempt to leave the testing area. Assume the party escort submission position or you will miss the party.
Okay. So, for one thing, as soon as we rounded that corner so we could see the fire, the platform slowed down. So we are descending into this fire that will probably kill us. Spoiler alert, it would have killed us. But we're given plenty of time to think. That corridor once again frames this balcony directly in your point of view. If you remember, Chamber 18 just had us jump to the side of a toxic waste pit so we could get into a portal. We have to do that again here to be able to escape the fire. So, throughout that little test, and I'm aware that I didn't explain the platform movement all that well, so I apologize for that part, but throughout that test, they combined things that are familiar to us, like the energy pellet shooter and the receptacle for it, aiming at oppositely angled platforms. They combined things that we recognize like that with new things that we hadn't seen before to test the majority of what we learned in the other 18 test chambers. However, the plot has also come to a different, or to a significant revelation. Maybe not that much of a surprise, particularly not now that this game's been out for, like, 13 years. But things are going to get a little more interesting from now on, because those were specifically contained and designed environments for us to use this portal gun in. This is a little less neat, as you might be able to tell from here. I'm going to take a couple more notes and then we'll get right back into continuing our little escape. It's such lovely fire, though. How many? Okay. Fortunately, nothing happens if we just stand here and stare at the fire for a minute. While I take notes. It would be a problem if anything would. Alright. So you may notice that this looks like a nice setup for some momentum. So let's set up for that momentum. The biggest difference in this section is that things aren't nearly so neatly organized, but they maintain the contrast that they established throughout the rest of the game. Dark things you can't portal, light things you can, even when they have caution signs on them. And early on in this escape portion, the structure very much guides you to where you need to go. You know, you get through that corridor, the only place you can really see to go is up. So you go up, there's a door, you can go through the door, which is the first time you've had to open a door, but you can do it because you're a human being and know how to operate a door. And then this door's locked, but there's a handle here, and you can still portal things. We can get through. it might not be a quote-unquote designed environment, but it is still very much a designed environment.
Where are you? I know you're there. I can feel you here. Hello?
And it kind of subverts the expectation that I mentioned earlier, where pretty much any open area has primarily dark surfaces that you can't portal. Because they're less rigidly structured now. But all the same, you know, we can get over here, we can get over here. We can't really portal to the rest of this. We can see this balcony over here, so we may as well go to it. And at this point you can also see some of the earlier chambers, so not only is it an instance of leading you through things, but if you wander around a little bit, you get a little bit more of a sense of how the world is connected. Because, in theory, this is all one massive building. They may not be as clearly defined and structured out and layered as they were in the deliberately designed test chambers, or deliberate, narratively designed test chambers. Every part of this is deliberate. But they're still structured in much the same way. I mean, you also get some nice helpful hints from our friendly neighborhood graffiti artist. Take some notes real quick and then we'll keep going. And now we get to have an adventure. And hey, look, it's that test chamber we were just in.
You win. Go back to the recovery annex for your cake. It was a fun test, and we're all impressed at how much you won. The test is over. Come back.
So, at this point, while we're revisiting some of the stuff we just went through, we didn't have the option of shooting both portals earlier. So we can see very clearly how much that ability has changed the way we can maneuver this same space. Making a note of that. You know, we can get through there in seconds without a need for a box, when the need for a box was completely obstructive the first time we were in there. We've come a long way. And we've only been going for like 3 hours. Also, we maintain the dark light thing, and the grates are the new windows. Except you can shoot through grates. Crud. Alright. So at this point, we're kind of just making our way through these underground, largely unused areas. We can see these massive pistons moving around. But the first couple of times we interact with them over there, once again, they're not going to hurt us. And we can see this one moving very clearly before we come anywhere within range of it. Everything is introduced slowly and carefully. Nothing that you aren't aware of is going to be a threat to you. But now we know that the crushy things exist. Oh hey look, the crushy things. We can see a hallway up there. We can't quite reach it. And those cracks in the environment certainly make it look like those things are going to smash. But these ones aren't. You know, if all you have is one source of elevation, may as well make good use of it. So now the thing we're learning how to use is these pistons. Obviously, some of them will kill you. Like those two. But some of them make really convenient elevators. And you know, you can never judge a piston by its being a piston. I mean, then there's these. These will kill ya. But you can clearly see that. Right, taking a couple more notes. Moving on to the beginning of page 5 of notes, which is a little crazy. We've got some friendly level design graffiti here, because again, everyone loves a few subtle, not subtle arrows. Not that that was exactly where we needed to go, because where we really need to go is up. But from up here we can get a better vantage point of it. And then use our old friend momentum, while the game freaks out. We're not walking through that.
You really shouldn't be here.
We're not walking through that either.
It's not too late for you to turn back.
And here we have pistons on parade. Several pistons. All gonna kill ya. I'll admit it's a little bit silly of me to use portal peeking to get through there. But it's what I have. We have to get up on the pistons to be able to see into this area. But the pistons are all slow moving, and obviously they only move in one direction. Well, I mean, two directions technically, because they go forward and backward. But they only have one set of destinations. So you can pretty well watch them and figure out what they're gonna do. And it's not like they move quickly. Though, certainly quickly enough to kill you if you're not paying attention. Once again, friendly neighborhood arrows. Some pipes to follow.
I feel sorry for you, really, because you're not even in the right place. You should have turned left.
Remember our old friend jumping into the
Think about it. Someday we'll remember
wall on the other side of a toxic pit? Yeah, he's back. And this time we have to time it so we can land on a piston. This equipment does start and stop automatically. We do have the proper warning signs, even if those warning signs don't really mean much to us in the long run. Take a note there, and go this way. Look at this lovely hallway. Oh. So we're in this really dangerous looking room. But each of these doors opens very slowly and very clearly indicates when it's going to open. Oh, come on now. Well, that wasn't quite what I was going for, but that works. So now we have more applications of that. How do you solve a problem that has bullets? Issue we discussed earlier. Now we have these doors, each of which give very clear indication when they're going to open. They open one at a time, and it gives us time to deal with them. And now we can get out.
You're not a good person. You know that, right? Good people don't end up here. Can you hear me?
At this point, again, I'm not here to analyze the narrative, but I mean, it's pretty gosh dang clear that GLaDOS is kinda nuts. So what we just opened was a ramp, and there is no way we could miss that because we just opened it. And we got some nice slight variation on the momentum puzzle here. Also slightly dizzying because I looked the other way when I was portaling.
This is your fault. It didn't have to be like this. I'm not kidding now. Turn back, or I will kill you. I'm going to kill you, and all the cake is gone. You don't even care, do you? This is your last chance.
Yeah, getting notably less subtle. And here we have the opportunity to see yet another new friend. Unfortunately, the glass isn't going to do much to protect us with this one. But we still don't have a choice but to see it in action before it can possibly hurt us. I'm going to look somewhere else because that's giving me a headache. But I will remind everyone in the audience, we are out of the main test chambers. And we're still having new things introduced. And they're still being introduced just as gently as they were the first time. Though much more rapidly, since at this point we pretty well know what we're doing. And that glass pane shows the, serves the double purpose of protecting you from that turret's first shot and showing you that those turrets can break glass, and thus are probably a little better at doing what they do. It also showed us that we can kind of lead their shots a little bit, as demonstrated here, since they have to rotate around to be able to shoot at us. Oh, darn it. Yeah, that was my bad. But turret plus explosion equals break glass. We have now learned this, and we have been able to apply that knowledge. So we can maintain it for any case in which we need turret plus explosion equals break glass again. At this point, it would be a little bit redundant of me to continue to point out all of the cases where we're still using the things we learned in Chamber 2 and 3. But look at that covering distance with portals. Another nice little variant on the obvious direction arrow. And we were introduced to these doors earlier. Now, there are a few of them. A few. And now they all open at once. Crap. Well, I screwed up there. Well, that's okay. Oh. Stop that. So based on the grid of lasers, you can pretty well interpret that it would be madness to run across this room right now. But we still have our options. Our good old let's get rid of turret options. Look how far we've come, that suddenly we can deal with an open room full of these guys. Just by kind of jumping around and ruining their days. This is one of the places I've already been. I'm not going to continue to do that. But it was the easiest way to not completely break the flow of what I'm... of moving around and taking care of these turrets. At the same time, it's a completely valid option to ignore that the turrets exist. That looks like it was the last one, though. So yeah, the lasers give very clear indication of what there is still to deal with. They show you where each of the turrets is and whether it's still active, and that makes this room a lot more manageable than it at first appears. And from now, we've also very definitely learned how to use ramps. But can we use multiple ramps at once? Not like that. Okay. Oof. Alright. So we've got a portal up there. And we can see that there's light coming in up here, because once again, light is excellent at guiding the eyes, you know, since you have to be able to see light to see it all. And we can use this ramp. And we can miss. Completely. Now we have a portal on that ramp. Or slope. I should call it a slope. Which allows us to get up here. And those turrets hardly even register as a threat. Okay, that one kind of does, because somehow it didn't get disabled. But it gives us plenty of time to see them descending from the ceiling, see them starting to activate, and we can already have a portal under one of them by the time they can even try to fire at us. Timing is key in a lot of design. There has to be enough time for a reaction. Otherwise, well, people don't feel like it's fair, and rightly so. I'm going to take another note. And on we go. Remember all that stuff about windows? They're really good at building up tension, too.
Well, you found me. Congratulations. Was it worth it? Because despite your violent behavior, the only thing you've managed to break so far is my heart. Maybe you could settle for that, and we'll just call it a day. I guess we both know that isn't going to happen. You chose this path. Now I have a surprise for you. Deploying surprise in 5, 4... Time out for a second. That wasn't supposed to happen. Do you see that thing that fell out of me? What is that? It's not the surprise. I've never seen it before. Never mind. It's a mystery I'll solve later. By myself. Because you'll be dead. I wouldn't bother with that thing. My guess is that touching it will just make your life even worse, somehow.
So we now have this area to go through. We have the familiar indicator of a thing that does a thing.
But if it were me, I'd leave that thing
And it's our old friend, the thing that burns things. otherwise known as the incinerator.
Reverse psychology? I mean, seriously now.
So we've only got a few options here.
Don't touch it. Pick it up and just stuff it back into me.
We could try that
Where are you taking
with
that
this thing.
Let's be honest. Neither one of us knows what that thing does. Just put it in the corner, and I'll deal with it later.
Well, that doesn't appear to work. So if we try listening to her,
That thing is probably some kind of raw sewage container. Go ahead and rub your face all over it.
which granted, at this point it's been fairly well established that listening to her.
Do you want to marry it? Well, I won't let you. How does that feel?
Oh, calm down. It's been pretty well established that listening to her isn't necessarily going to be the right choice.
That thing alone.
But we can press this button and we can see that
I am being serious.
a nice little fire opens up.
Thing is not part of any test protocol.
We also don't have much time to get over there. Fortunately, portals.
Just ignore that thing and stand still.
So yeah, if you went through the companion cube test chamber, you remember how these things work. And well,
You're kidding me. Did you just stuff that aperture science thing, we don't know what it does, into an aperture science emergency intelligence incinerator? That has got to be the dumbest thing that. Whoa. Good news. I figured out what that thing you just incinerated did. It was a morality core they installed after I flooded the enrichment center with a deadly neurotoxin to make me stop flooding the enrichment center with a deadly neurotoxin. So get comfortable while I warm up the neurotoxin emitters. Huh. That core may have had some ancillary responsibilities. I can't shut off the turret defenses. Oh well. If you want my advice, you should just lie down in front of a rocket. Trust me. It'll be a lot less painful than the neurotoxin.
so we have the return of this guy,
Keep doing whatever it is you think you're doing.
our new friend who breaks glass.
Good advice aren't mutually exclusive. The rocket really is the way to go.
And we also have a timer.
Isn't important to me. It's the fluid catalytic cracking unit. It made shoes for orphans.
So this caution tape indicates we might want a portal here. And that nicely frames that.
What did I ever do to you? The difference between us is that I can feel pain.
Given that she's the only target in the room, that's fairly self-explanatory. But now we have another thing to burn.
Who are you? What is that? Oh, what's that? What's that? What is that?
Did you hear me? I said you don't care. Are you listening?
So yeah, at this point, we have all of the... I'm going to pause this for a sec. We have all of the pieces that we need to solve this last puzzle. We know how the incinerator works. We know how the rocket turret works. We know that given that the rocket turret activates, we probably have to hit something with it, and the most target-looking thing in the room is the giant computer that's trying to kill us right in the center. So that's probably a good choice. I mean, you know. So combine all of that together. We know how to do this. It may take some figuring out, but the entire game has given us all of the pieces that we need to solve this last puzzle. Everything's led up to this. And even this part isn't overwhelming. I mean, it can be on a first playthrough, that much I'll grant, because timers are really good at stressing people out. Fun fact, if you want to make someone 80% more anxious about doing a thing, time them. making one more note, and then we will continue on with this confrontation. Alright, now that I have completely broken the dramatic tension,
Starting now, there's going to be a lot less conversation and a lot more. Oh, you think you're doing some damage?
2 plus 2 is...
In base 4, I'm fine. I let you survive this long because I was curious about your behavior. Well, you've managed to destroy...
so at this point it's kind of just repetition.
Can't get the
We did it once, now we have to do it again.
I'd just like to point out that you were given every opportunity to succeed. There was even going to be a party for you. A big party that all your friends were invited to. I invited your best friend, the companion cube. Of course, he couldn't come because you murdered him. All your other friends couldn't come either because you don't...
And we've got several options here, but this one's just the fastest. As far as dropping the cubes in the fire. Or, not cubes. They're not cubes. Most things in this game are cubes.
When I said deadly neurotoxin, the deadly was in massive sarcasm quote. I could take a bath in this stuff, put it on cereal, rub it right into my eyes. Honestly, it's not deadly. To me. I could take a bath in this stuff, put it on cereal, rub it right into my eyes. Honestly, it's not deadly. Who's gonna
Drat.
make the cake when I'm gone? You. Look. You're
Alright.
wasting your time. And believe me.
So we have this last core, and the fact that the cores are visible on her
Survival. Well then,
pretty clearly illustrates
I have your brain scanned.
what progress we've made and how much we have how much we have left to do.
Don't believe me? Here, I'll put you on. That's you. That's how dumb you sound. You've been wrong about every single thing you've ever done, including this thing. You're not smart. You're not a scientist. You're not a doctor. You're not even a full-time employee. Where did your life go so wrong? Are you trying to escape? Things have changed since the last time you left the building. What's going on?
And there we go. With all of that, with everything that the game taught us, we were able to fight, practically, the game itself. Everything about Portal is a massive puzzle, but it's also a massive tutorial for what you need to do. We learned how to use those rocket turrets like 10 minutes ago. And all of it just builds on each other to make a learning experience so incredibly well built that you don't even notice that you're learning most of the time. It's an impressive game, and one that I have a lot of respect for. And I'm glad to have gone through and done a full analytical playthrough of it just now. In the future, if I do more of these analysis type streams, I'll probably make them a bit shorter. This one was over 3.5 hours. It's past midnight, I'm hungry, and I want to go to bed. But I think that doing this in a shorter form, for one thing, I could split up a game a little bit more. There are a lot of games that I couldn't do this in one sitting, particularly not moving as slowly as I was, though I definitely picked up the pace in the last hour. But I also think it would just be more engaging to watch if it wasn't quite so long. I'm already going really slowly as it is, going through the entire game in one sitting. Well, I applaud you if you're still here. We'll just take a minute to listen to the song, because everyone loves the song, and then I'll wrap this up.
Except the ones who are dead. But there's no sense crying over every mistake. You just keep on trying till you run out of cake. And the science gets done and you make a neat gun for the people who are still alive. I'm not even angry. I'm being so sincere right now. Even though you broke my heart and killed me and tore me to pieces and threw every piece into a fire. As they burned, it hurt because I was so happy for you. Now these points of data make a beautiful line, and we're out of data, we're releasing on time. So I'm glad I got burned. Think of all the things we learned for the people who are still alive. Go ahead and leave me. I think I prefer to stay inside. Maybe you'll find someone else to help you. Maybe Black Mesa. That was a joke, haha, that chance. Anyway, this cake is great. It's so delicious and moist. Look at me still talking when there's science to do. When I look up there, it makes me glad I'm not you. I've experiments to run. There is research to be done on the people who are still alive. And believe me, I am still alive. I'm doing science and I'm still alive. I feel fantastic and I'm still alive. While you're dying, I'll be still alive. And when you're dead, I will be still alive. Still alive. Still alive.
Alright. Well, that pretty well concludes that. If you're new here, this isn't my normal fare by any means. But this was fun, and I got a lot of information out of it for sure. 4.5 pages of notes. Anyway, as I said in my stream this morning, next week will be an indie intermission stream, and after that we'll be getting back to Fire Emblem Gaiden. I'd like to thank you all for watching, particularly if you stuck around for this long, and I hope you have a good night. Bye guys.